Hello, I'm Donna Wares, a senior editor with the Spokesman-Review. This month, our Northwest Passages Book Club welcomes a very special guest. Nancy Pearl is the best-selling author, librarian, and a National Public Radio commentator, and she's here with us this evening. Nancy is well known for her Book Lust series and also is the author of the new novel, George and Lizzie. Thank you, Nancy, for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, Donna. It's a pleasure to be here.
While you were working at the Seattle Library, you launched a One Book, One City program that has since inspired people from Seattle to Sarajevo to read and discuss the same book. So can you tell us what were some of the highlights from the movement that you've started?
I think that one of the best things was hearing from book clubs who have discovered new authors, which is one of the goals that we had, who found that, especially book groups that met at libraries or community centers, who found that despite their sort of surface differences, difference of religion, difference of age, difference of ethnicity between other people in the group, that sharing this experience, this reading and discussing a book was very meaningful to them because it showed them in a way that these differences were on the surface and that underneath we share a really common humanity. So that was one just wonderful outcome. I think the most dramatic outcome for me was when I went to Bosnia at the invitation of the State Department of the embassy, U.S. Embassy there, to help teachers and librarians and students talk about a book in a country that is really divided among three religions and two areas, and bringing kids together from those areas and having them sit in the same room and talk about a book, about issues that were important to both of them, it really changed my life. It demonstrated to me how important reading is.
And when did you go to Bosnia?
I went to Bosnia 5 years ago, and I'll tell you my memories and my thoughts about that country. I think about it all the time.
What's interesting is the book that you shared was by one of our well-known Spokane authors.
It was Sherman Alexie's The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian. And initially, they had chosen the book before I was invited to come there to do the kind of preliminary workshopping with people about how to lead a book discussion and what was important. I thought, how could that book, which is so place specific, really translate in a literal and figurative way to Bosnian teenagers. And my gosh, I couldn't have been more wrong. It was the perfect book. And it was not only the teens who were moved by that book and moved to talk about important things that were going on, but also the adults in their life.
So since retiring from the library, you've started a new career as an author yourself. In addition to the Book Lust series, you just wrote your first novel, George and Lizzie. Can you tell us about the backstory? What made you want to tell that story?
The backstory was that I was having trouble falling asleep one night, and when I was just at that space where you're sort of neither asleep nor awake, but kind of in between, these two characters came into my head, and all I knew about them, I knew their names. Their names were George and Lizzie. I knew that George was a dental student at the University of Michigan, and I knew that Lizzie was a freshman, an undergraduate there, and I knew that they met at a bowling alley. And that's all I knew about them. But there was something about them that just stayed with me. And I take these long walks every day. And on my walks, I would think about them, and I would wonder what they were doing, and I would learn little by little. I just learned everything about them. And I didn't write anything down for really several years. And then one day, because I couldn't find, this sounds ridiculous, but sometimes all readers will, I think, identify with this. Sometimes you just can't find the right book. You're looking, there's a book out there that will satisfy whatever inchoate need you have at that moment, but you can't find the book. And I could not find a book to read. And then I thought, well, I have these characters and I know all about them, and I could write them down, and I could write the kind of book that I love to read. And that's what I ended up doing.
At our book club event, we're going to be giving away Nancy Pearl action figures to some lucky readers. And I'm wondering, how did you become the only librarian with your own action figure?
Right. Well, that's a lovely story. So they're done by a Seattle company called Accoutrements. The retail store is Archie McPhee in Seattle in the Wallingford neighborhood. And in 2002, we went, my husband and I were at a dinner party, and one of the other guests was the owner of that company. And he was telling us about all the different action figures that the company had done, Shakespeare and Jane Austen and Jesus, and just, they were sort of at the beginning of their action figures. And someone said, "Oh, Mark, you should do a librarian action figure." And someone else said, "And Nancy should be the model for that." And then we all laughed. I mean, a librarian action figure, I believe librarians perform miracles. I think librarians change people's lives for the better. But, a librarian action figure kind of boggled the mind. And that night, as we were driving home, my husband said his 4 favorite words to me. And I know husbands across the world have different favorite words that they say to their wives. My husband's 4 favorite words are, "Nancy, think this through," because I frequently just have these great ideas.
Oh, that's terrific. I love it.
And so he said, "Do you really want to be a 5-inch non-biodegradable plastic action figure?" And I said, "Oh, don't even think about it. It'll never happen anyway." And then a year later, I got a call from Mark saying, "Come to Mukilteo to be digitized." And in 2003, the same month, September of 2003, that the first Booklust book came out, the first action figure with the amazing shushing action was for sale, appeared on the American scene, causing some controversy because of the amazing shushing action, which of course we were playing off that stereotype that librarians say shush all the time, which they no longer do. And of course, we know that's what made it funny. But there are about 20 librarians around the world who have no sense of humor, and they wrote to me not happy with the librarian action figure. Nonetheless, many other people around the world were very happy with the librarian action figure. And in about 2010, and then we did a deluxe action figure with a computer and a book truck, and then when new import rules came into effect, it just didn't pay to produce those, so they went out of print, and you could only out of production, and you could only get them on eBay or Amazon. Had them for sale for greatly inflated prices. And then Mark called last year and said, "We're thinking of doing a new action figure, and what we'd like, instead of a shushing action, we'd like this action figure, library action figure, to be fighting against censorship and ignorance and anti-intellectualism," which are just what I would be fighting against, what I think I do fight against in my eagerness to get everyone reading. And of course, I loved the idea, and so the new one came out in December.
Thank you so much, and we have the new ones here with us for the book club.
Great.
Thank you so much, Nancy, for taking the time to chat.
Totally my pleasure. Thank you, Donna.
So, for anyone listening, to learn more about Nancy Pearl and the Northwest Passages Book Club, we have quite a few stories online. Check out our website, www.spokesman.com.